Tell me why, tell me why. Why can't we live together? Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together? La la. Hello, all you melanated people. Sorry, kids, by God's lips. This is Coy. I'm gonna do that. Go grab your All right, all right, all right. All right, Melanated Nation. I know that you all are watching the Amber Guyger trial, and I'm hosting that watch party. And so some of you are fully aware that I'm going to continue to do that. And I'm going to continue to make sure that you all stay abreast of everything that's going on. But we are also going to talk about Amber Guyger. And I want to start at the beginning. I want to talk about before she was actually her first day in court. I want to go back. I want to talk about all the things that happened September 6th, and I want to bring it forward. So I think today is going to be a good day for us to wrap a taste. And with that being said, I also want to talk about Trump and this whistleblower complaint. I'm going to be referring to my notes a lot because there's a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff to say, to see, to do today. Happy Friday to us, right? And so with that being said, let's kind of jump into a few things. I'd be remiss if I did not talk about Felicity Huffman getting 14 days in jail. Do y'all remember Tanya McDowell? I think this is very relevant to the Amber Guyger saga. That's what I'm going to call it, the murder trial. I think it's very relevant because Tanya McDowell was homeless and moved and used her father's address to make sure that her child could go to a good school. Y'all remember that? And she was put in prison for making that decision. Felicity Huffman, court of law in the United States of America, was given 14 days for paying $15,000 in a complete bribery scandal that allowed her child to get into the school of their choice. And so while many of you are still watching the Amber Guyger show trial, it is a show. That's a Freudian slip, but that is what I meant. It is a show. We are going to unpack and talk about everything from day 1 through day 4. So this is Coy with the Black Tea Sip. We're going to get into it. We're a few minutes early, so I'm going to give y'all a chance. We're coming back at 11 o'clock. Stay with me. Taking a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Things always start early. Give me a chance to tell people. Give that 2 minutes gives me a chance to load up Facebook, YouTube. No, this is my tea. I'm not feeling so hot. Can the Facebook people hear the music? Okay, because they cut me off.
So you can get one for free that has your name, pictures, etc.
How much?
5 minutes max of content.
Really? Oh, okay, I need to do that. So what do you need from me to do that?
Just all the logos and stuff you find. or any sponsor logos, you can get those to me.
Okay, we'll do.
Imagine I was talking about there's a few shows. I think we have like 10 shows that have their own unique.
I need to do that.
And then we put royalty-free music of your choosing if you like. So that way they can still hear music about it.
Well, I am gonna start. Okay, as soon as this winds down.
And we'll grab some coffee.
Okay.
Looks good. You want to have the Serato one after this? Not Serato, the Symphony Door commercial after this.
And bring me back, and then we'll do the commercial. Oh, this was over here. I think I accidentally did that. I didn't mean to, but it's fine. I think I did it unbeknownst. Click a like right there, or a heart. Give me a heart or something. That's fine. What's the time? We got 30 seconds. Talk about Trump first, real fast. I'm gonna talk about it real quick. All right, all right, all right. Happy Friday, as happy as you can be during the Botham Jean murder trial. We're going to unpack that. You know, it's a lot to say. There's a lot going on. Y'all can look at my hair and tell I'm stressed, right? This murder case has affected all of us, the hearts and the minds of anyone who has a heart and a mind. I think that this is a tremendous disservice to the family. I think this is a tremendous disservice to all melanated people, Black people in particular. And we've said lots of things. I've said lots of things about what I think this trial is really about. But what it really does is it shines a spotlight one more time, yet again, illuminating the fact that there is huge disparities between when you are Black and you are killed and when you are white and you are the killer. There are huge disparities there. Nothing has changed. We are well aware of it from before the plantation, when during the transatlantic slave trade, we saw that, we know through history, that if the load became too heavy, the cargo, which was us, was thrown over. So we are not shocked, although we are dismayed. And so I want to talk about Amber Guyger, but I want to go way, way, way back. I want to go back to the beginning. But before I get into that, I would be remiss if I did not talk about the orangutan running the 3 ring circles from the Oval Office. Trump has a whistleblower complaint. I talked about it last week. I talked about what a whistleblower complaint is. But I think y'all should hear from me one more time very quickly, because we are going to spend the rest of the time with Amber Guyger. And I think that you should know that Trump, as early as June 11th, had been talking with and to foreign leaders. The thing that makes this whistleblower case so compelling is the conversation between he and the Ukraine president was so egregious that they put that information into classified so it would not be readily available to the American public. So before we get into Amber Guyger, let's talk about Trump very quickly because that is of national security. And we need to have a conversation about what this really means for us. On July 31st, Trump holds a phone call with Putin, and they talk about trade relations and being able to reestablish the relations between the U.S. and Russia. Well, we've never really had good relations with Russia because of the things they do. Now, let me tell you why this is important. I know y'all want to get to Amber Guyger. I'm hosting the watch party while Amber Guyger's on the stand because I think it's important. I want y'all to listen to me, but you can always catch me on a replay. But I think it's important for you to have all the information. So here we are with Trump, very quickly. The reason this conversation is so inflammatory is because Russia has invaded the Ukraine. And the Ukrainian president was talking to Trump about getting more weapons and aid from us because he is asking for help. Now, from June 11th all the way to August 8th, he's in conversation with many foreign leaders, China, Japan. We know that China is constantly stealing our what we call intellectual property. They're always stealing, for lack of a proverbial word, I'm going to use a technical term, our stuff. And so he's having talks with them about trade, and those things are not out of the norm for a president. However, we have to be concerned about exactly what he's talking about because we are talking about an orangutan running a circus. And so on August 9th, a brief letter comes from going to the president is released, and it says that she is very disappointed in the way that he has handled things with this Ukrainian president and offers this letter as an act of respect of patriotism, not preference. And she writes, you should have your own team. On August 12th, the whistleblower files a complaint. On the 13th, the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff, Democrat from California, subpoenas Guyger, who heads up the intelligence agency for the United States, and to compel him to disclose the whistleblower complaint. And Schiff says that the complaint was determined to be credible by the Intelligence Community Inspector General, the OIG, Michael Atkins, but does not say much more. On the 17th, Guyger says he will not testify or hand over the whistleblower complaint. Well, that raises an eyebrow. It says Schiff tells Guyger that he couldn't because he is being instructed not to, and this involved a higher authority, someone above, someone inferring that this is the president of the United States. On the 18th of September, the Post reports that the complaint involves Trump's communications with a foreign leader and some kind of promise that was made. Now, very quickly, I know y'all want to get to Amber, and I'm going to get to it. I promise you, I'm not going to disappoint you. But I think this is important. This is national security. And when we start talking about the difference between us's and them's, I think this is of ultimate importance because if Obama had done that, and y'all know I've been very critical of Obama, had Obama done that, they'd be burning down Watts, for lack of a better term. The Chocolate City would be on fire. There'd be crosses burning in the concrete jungle. So on the 18th, after the Post makes this public cry, the 19th Atkins is scheduled to brief members of the House Intelligence Committee in a closed-door session. Trump responds to the report in a series of tweets. He says, another fake news story out there. It never ends virtually. Anytime I speak on the phone to a foreign leader, I understand that there may be many people listening from various U.S. agencies, not to mention those from other countries itself. No problem. Knowing all of this, is anyone dumb enough to believe that I would say something inappropriate to a foreign leader while on such a potentially heavy populated call? I would only do what is right anyway and only do good for the U.S. All right. I think this is extremely important because I told you they classified the transcript and put it in a separate data file so that it would not be readily accessed. It would have to become declassified, and there are numerous steps to do that. So now the whistleblower complaint has come full circle. And we now know that Trump made promises to the Ukraine president. But this is how it goes, because he is no more than a thug, or orange thug, an orangutan, doing thuggish things in the circus. And so Trump basically says this, like, you know how he tells everything is marvelous, spectacular. So he's talking to the Ukrainian president. Now understand, the Ukrainian president, Ukraine, but like the U.S., we got a reality star as president, and they have a comedian. While he's asking for help, Trump says something of this nature. Now, y'all Google me. This is Googleable. I'm not going to steer you wrong, baby. He says, I'm only going to say this maybe 17 more times because he's an idiot. And he says, you want something from me, but I need something from you. And he tells the Ukrainian president, who is being populated by Russia, it's martial law in the Ukraine. Russia is not part of the Ukraine. So it would be if Mexico came and occupied our cities and states with military presence and told us what we could and could not do. That is the equivalent of what Russia has done in Ukraine. So when Trump's talking to him and he's asking for help and he's telling him, we have lots of allies, you need our help, I need you to investigate Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. That is what's being said. And if you do that for me, then I'll send you aid. Well, that's called extortion. So I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, that it is treasonous what he has done. And there are different rules for them that there are for us, and we know that. The Amber Guyger trial is no different, but you need to know that these things are going on with the President of the United States. All right, let's talk about Amber Guyger. Let's get into it. Trial's going on now. It's day 5. I want to go all the way back to the 6th. I'm going to refer to my notes quite often because I think it's important for me to be accurate. Now, I've said lots of things. Y'all know I've said, and I make no qualms about it. Y'all know that I have said unequivocally that I do not believe this story. I do not believe that Amber Guyger stumbled into this her apartment unbeknownst, unaware, unknowingly. Several things have come out. We'll talk about those things. But I think it's hard for me to believe, and perhaps it's hard for me to believe because murder is usually a crime of people that knew each other. There has to be some kind of understanding between the two people when we're talking about murder. So maybe that's why my mind won't allow me to believe anything else. But the truth be told, it just, well, I tell you all the time, my grandmother used to say, if it don't make sense, if there's a lie somewhere. Well, here it is, September 6th. Let's get into it. September 6th, Amber Guyger serves warrants to persons considered high crime, more serious, okay, with her partner and her team. Now, she's on this elite team where they are literally the backup for SWAT. She does this on September 6th with her partner / superior officer / lover, Martin Rivera, married man. Now, after they serve this warrant, Amber Guyger returns back to the station, and Martin Rivera, her partner, he leaves. He leaves and he goes to his kid's Boy Scout event. Well, now, Guyger does a 13.5-hour shift. Now, we know that the prosecution, the state, said several times that's not out of the ordinary. But I want you to understand that Amber Guyger is not sitting in this, she's not working. She's not driving a patrol car around for 14 hours, almost 14 hours. She's not out here hustling and running down people. She said it went very smoothly when they served this warrant. She goes back. The only thing beyond that she does is transport them from interrogation on Lamar, basically a 5-minute walk to her house. She transfers them to Lew Sterry. That is the culmination of her day on the 6th of September 2018. She leaves work. Before she leaves work, she docks her body cam, I guess, so it can be charged for the next day. She drives 2 minutes or so, it's not far, to Southside Flats. It's not far. And she then she's talking to Rivera, her partner / superior officer / lover, on the phone. Now, we know that the state said something to the effect of her pulling over and her having this conversation. The inference in that is that there is something that either puts her in a state. She's either extremely happy or extremely disappointed. I tend to believe she's extremely disappointed about whatever this is that's happening. Now, I believe what he told us that he couldn't come. I seem to also think that there's some undercurrent that leads me to believe that perhaps he told her something like they couldn't continue to see each other. Maybe he got busted. Because whatever it was so compelling that she pulled over to the side before parking her car on the wrong floor. On the night of September 6th, there are several things we need to talk about. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, we need to talk about a couple of different things. So now on this night, we know that she says that she goes to her apartment and the door is ajar. We also know that it is believed that his door and the way the facing is from testimony from Ranger Armstrong, and we'll get into him in just a moment. We also know that they're saying that the door facing is not flush, and therefore the door would not always be flushed and closed. Okay. Now, with that being said, she gets to the door on September 6th, and the door is ajar. Okay, let me tell you why we're going to pause right there. Because J.D. Miles, who has been working in the local North Texas reporting area, well-respected, award-winning journalist, tweet. Breaking sources reveal Amber Guyger told investigators she yelled at Botham Jean to show his hands after she walked into his apartment, drew a firearm, and shot him. Officer says door was unlocked and she thought she was entering her unit when she saw the victim in the dark. Okay, now y'all saying, okay, Cole, we already know all of that. Well, yeah. Now, let me tell you what NBC Bay Area says. They give a lot of things about her in the 14-hour day. Guyger then put down several things she was holding and continued to fight with the key when the resident swung open the door and startled her. Guyger believes Jean, who was wearing only underwear, was an intruder and shot him with her service weapon. It wasn't until police and rescue units began arriving that she realized she was not in her apartment. She had several things in her hand and she put them down. That's basically what she's saying. So we have conflicting stories as to what's the truth and what's the lie. Originally, she said she put several things down, then she comes back, and then after they get their story straight, she put a key in the door. Now, we have testimony from day two, Armstrong, that says the key did not light up red. Well, I think it was day 1 and day 2. The key did not light up red. We know the key did not light up red because she was in the wrong place. Wasn't her apartment. So the several things have happened since September 6th. I want to talk about that a little bit. You have DPD on the September 7th that was in the process of getting a warrant for Amber Guyger. On the 7th, the day after, they turned over the case to the Rangers. The Rangers interviewed Guyger, and they determined that they are not ready to arrest her, and they asked the Dallas Police Department at the behest of Chief Hall to hold off on the warrant. Because on the 7th, it's determined by Chief Hall that they are ill-equipped or do not want the scrutiny, so they turn over the case to the Texas Rangers. Chief Hall knows nothing about the Texas Rangers, and anybody who has lived here 30 minutes knows you don't turn over a case to the Texas Rangers, not when it involves a Dallas police officer, because they are for the police officers. Okay, all right. We're going to work it all the way to, we're going to spend this whole time talking about Amber Guyger. Well, on the 7th, they have a vigil for Botham Jean. Now, we are still waiting on an arrest warrant at this time, and remember, the Chief Hall has given us all this information, inaccurate, what they can and cannot do. We're claiming that she needs to be fired. On September 8th, they continue to hold off the warrant for Amber Guyger. Mike Rollins meets with the Jean family, and then he and Casey Thomas and Royce West, they flanking him, one on each side. And they talk about how they've turned over the case to the Texas Rangers, and they talk about how they have full faith and confidence in Chief Hall. Y'all remember that? Okay. We're still waiting on our arrest warrant. Later that day, Hall says that talking about the Dallas Police Department, have no role in the investigation process. And she goes on to talk about the Rangers and why they're holding off. At 7:16 on September 8th, Amber Guyger, who served for 4 years with this elite squad of the Dallas Police Department, is identified as the shooter. Black Twitter goes crazy. You remember that? And it's confirmed that they didn't know each other. So they have always said my theory that they knew each other was wrong. I have always thought they knew each other because I just find it hard to believe. Well, the story doesn't make sense. It's, in the words of my cousin's dead cat on the line. Doesn't make sense. September 9th. All right. Hall has to demand that she turn herself in. Now, let me tell y'all this. This is a little backstory for y'all because I think you need all the information. Chief Hall has been told that this is an officer involved shooting. We talked about this last week. We talked about this a little bit on the show. An officer involved shooting suggests that an officer was on duty and had to fire the weapon and shot someone. That's not the case here. She's off duty. So she doesn't get the same rights and privileges that she would get if she was on duty. With that being said, the backstory is that Chief Hall had to call her attorney and tell her attorney that if she did not turn herself in within a specified time, and I believe she said 30 minutes, then she was going to have her picked up. What they did was they took her from Arlington, where she was living with her mother, because remember, she moved out of the apartment within 3 days of the shooting. They took her from Tarrant County in Arlington, drove her an hour away to Kaufman County, and then had her booked and processed. That whole process took about 30 minutes. Now, she's charged with manslaughter. Now, it's important for you to know she's charged with manslaughter because the same officer, David Armstrong, who said on the stand on day 2 that she should not be charged with anything, was the same person who wrote the arrest warrant and said that manslaughter should be the charge. So either he's lying then or he's lying now. One or the other. With that being said, you have to also keep in mind that she was released on a $300,000 bond, which means she placed $3,000 bond. A second-degree felony of manslaughter is what she's charged with. That carries for 2 to 20 years in prison, a $10,000 fine. The case then moves to the Dallas County District Attorney Office. Remember we had Faith? Faith didn't want to charge the case. Remember that? She said they were going to investigate. They turned it over to the grand jury. Not until Crusoe comes on, a few months later after he beats her for the election, that she gets the charge of murder. So they increase it from manslaughter to murder. She's being charged with murder now. We'll talk about lesser charges in just a moment. On September 10th, they hold this press conference, and Faith talks about the grand jury. Like I said, it's superfluous, nothing going on. Later that same day, 2 warrant affidavits are released. The arrest warrant for Amber Guyger, which is written by the Texas Ranger David Armstrong. And then you have a search warrant signed by Brandon Birmingham. That's important because he is going to be asking Black folks, because we make up 52% of the Dallas County vote. He's going to be asking you for your vote in just a minute. 2022, he's going to be asking you for your vote. He signs the arrest warrant. That's when they find the so-called marijuana in his apartment, and they try to disparage his character. That happens on the 10th, 4 days later. Now, if people saying, why did they go in and search his apartment? Okay, the reason they searched his apartment is her things were left behind. They needed Amber Guyger's things because in the commotion of the shooting, she leaves her things behind. They're now telling you what she had when she went in. She's talking about on day 5, she said she had everything on her left. Her heavy vest, her lunch kit, and her backpack was held on her left so that she could keep her firearm or her hand free. Those items were left in Jean's apartment, so they needed a search warrant so they could go in and get it. And in the meantime, and in between time, they're going to find something to disparage him, ruin his character. That was Brandon Birmingham. Now, the arrest warrant says that was written on the 8th by Armstrong, that she found the door slightly ajar and then opened it by pushing a key into the door. Now, does that make sense to you? That if the door is ajar, you take your key, put it in there, and then continue to open the door? That does not make sense. We're going to talk about how this breaks down over day 1 through, well, 5 now. But listen to what they're saying. Originally, NBC Bay Area reported she had so much stuff in her hand she had to put it down. Then she says, well, the door was ajar. She didn't need to put her stuff down if the door is ajar. Now in the affidavit, in the arrest affidavit, it says the door was open, but she put her key in and then took her key in the lock and pushed it open some more. None of that makes sense. On September 10th, neighbors say they heard an exchange and then 2 shots. Okay, let me tell you why that's important. That's important because we saw video of her pacing back and forth. You had neighbors saying that they saw her certain places. They heard her on the phone. Let me say this. If the door is ajar, she has never testified, nor does it make sense that if you believe you're in your house and you see someone in your house, you would shut the door. So the door will remain open. Now listen, that door doesn't shut. They said, well, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. Because Armstrong said that he conducted an experiment. I don't know how it's an experiment. You just open and close the door. The experiment would be scientific. Nothing scientific about that. They're saying they open and close the door. Now, if the door was ajar, like she said the second time, because originally, remember, she had to put all her stuff down. If the door is ajar, you would not take turn and close the door if someone's in your apartment. So the door would have remained open. Therefore, people would have been able to hear the exchange because the neighbor across the hall said he would hear Botham Jean. Day 1 of testimony. He said he would hear Botham Jean sometimes singing. What was he saying? Sometimes gospel, sometimes he heard Drake playing. But if the door was open, you would have readily been able to hear. So if she was yelling the verbal commands that she said she was yelling, you would have been able to hear that. None of that has been readily made clear and aware to the jury or anyone else. And all of this is said on day 10. You have to also understand that Lee Merritt got involved as the attorney for representing the family and demanded that the Texas Rangers interview the other people in the apartment complex because many people say they heard her screaming and yelling, open this GD door. Do y'all remember that? That was all over. That was everywhere. Many people said they heard her. None of that has come out. Now, the state has rested after only 4 days, caught everyone off guard, and everyone was shocked to know that. So the state has rested. Listen to what I am telling you. Bay Area NBC said she had many things in her hand and she had to put them down. JD Miles says that she pushed the door open. They have told us through testimony of Armstrong that the door didn't always shut, and she would not have closed that door shut if she believed someone was in her apartment. You have people saying they heard voices, they did not hear verbal commands. The door would have been ajar. None of what she's saying on the stand now is making sense. And we can go back to September 10th. No one has testified to the fact that they heard voices prior to the 2 shots, and no one has said that they heard verbal command. Okay, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it in just a minute because I think it's important for you to know that Lee Merritt has a witness, and he demanded that the Texas Rangers take the statement when they say after the gunshots go off, she heard a male voice say, "Oh my God, why did you do that?" It is believed that that person is in fact Botham Jean. None of that has been testified to. Stay with me. On September 13th, they hold the funeral of this murdered man. Then on September 13th, we hear that the search warrant was returned from Jean's apartment. This is what they find. Now listen, this is why they needed the search warrant, because we, as the Black nation, we were all upset about why they in their apartment. Brandon Birmingham signs the warrant, and this is what they get. 2 bullet casings. 1 bullet casing is actually in the wall. Okay, and 1 is in him. Downward trajectory. We'll talk about that. Then you have a police backpack and a vest. It's inside the apartment. Then you find 10.4 grams of marijuana. Listen, under the city's cite and release, that would not have been enough for him to be cited and released. You have a lunchbox, her lunchbox, a laptop computer, a metal marijuana grinder, two keys, one which I believe is clearly inferred that it's hers, and two unused packages of medical aid that were seized from the apartment when they went in under the warrant signed by Birmingham. All of that is returned and noted on September 13th. On September 14th, we have more backlash about the warrant. You know, the information that is released, the family says, was far worse than finding out he was dead because now they're disparaging his character. September 21st, I got to take a break, y'all, in just a minute. I want y'all to stay with me. September 21st, the investigators seek doorbell camera video from townhouses near and the complex where Jean was killed. The Dallas District Attorney's Office requests recordings from Ring, a home security system company, and they specifically seek footage captured from 8 a.m. to midnight on September 6th from townhomes on Arch Place. You said, well, Corey, why does that matter? Because we have the footage in the garage where we see her in the car with another police officer. That police officer testifies to the fact that some of the things that went on were not protocol. She was removed from the car. Mike Mata, who is the president of the police association, shows up on the 6th. Now, is it unusual for the president of the police association to show up? I don't know. I don't know what their protocols are. But I know as a hierarchy, Mike Mata, you would think that the rep, I don't know if he stands as the rep when he's president of the police association. I understand that they have other people and there are other reps. And the attorney, he takes her out of the car. People are comforting her. Now, mind you, look at the timeline from the time, and we know this, from the time that she got arrested to the time that she actually turned herself in. She's having meetings with her with the president of the association, with her attorneys, with other representatives. Because remember, Chief Howell had to demand that she turn herself in. This is time enough. All I'm saying, all I'm framing is this is time enough for somebody to get the story together. That's all I'm saying. With that being said, we have conflicting views as to what happened. Now, she says she had to put all of her stuff down to get into the house. Then she comes back and said, well, the door was ajar. Then she says she stuck a key in the door and used her key to push open an already open door. What I have not said in this couple of minutes before I have to take a break is the fact that the light switch is directly adjacent to her. So the light switch is right next to her. If you walk in to your apartment being the door being ajar, the TV being on, a strange person in there, you cut the light on. You cut the light on immediately. How many of us walk around our house in the dark? We cut the light on when nobody's there and we're familiar. That is just what you do. So you have conflicting stories about whether or not she put her stuff down. She's on the stand now. She just finished testifying that she had all of her things on her left arm to keep her gun hand ready. We also have a story about the door being ajar. Why would you stick your key in an ajar door? None of that makes sense. I got to take a quick commercial break. Y'all stay with me. I know y'all are toggling between my watch party on the stand with her on the stand and me. Stay with me because I'm gonna break it down. We just did September 24th. This is Coy with the Black Tea Sip. I'm coming right back in a minute. My phone is blowing up. This is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Well, stay with me because I'm breaking this down from September 6th all the way to the present day. Because see, so much has happened and it's been a year we forgot. None of what she's saying makes sense. This is all a lie. It's a lie from the pit of hell. It's a lie. It's all a lie. Yeah, I can play this on YouTube. Hey y'all.
So grabbing the feed from Facebook, stream your key,
Mhm.
stream to all
That's cute. I got an intern I need to engage. Um, I'm so distraught about this thing. I can't think. It even take. It is, and it's worn me out. It's worn me out, y'all. I need these breaks today because I need to. See what they say. From. Sleep on the couch. Shaker. Okay.
They don't wanna see this. Junior Mafia, dress that top beats. They go to the mafia, so I drop the millionaire. Killing that crib, but somebody gotta do it. Oh yeah, mafia. You know, young ass. The one you got sickle cell something. Have a seizure or heart attack.
I'm getting real. I am so from a off the job being on chat. I'm feeling some kind of way. Let me see.
Now when I came out, I told you it was just about me. Everybody had to open their mouth.
Fuck my people.
Well, that's how we do it.
Fuck my people.
Over in the staff, working like the way there's a. And if you want to be down with that,
I said, fuck you too.
she ain't no accent.
You too. Getting hot, y'all. All your kids don't grow. I'm a little angry today, y'all. Can y'all hear it in my music? I'm a little angry today. All right. All right. All right. Now, I told y'all we're gonna unpack this thing. We are going. I started September 6th, and I'm going all the way back. I'm going all the way back to September 6th, and I'm gonna bring it all home. So now we are at September 21st, 2018. I told you the investigators are looking at the doorbell cameras from the surrounding areas and getting that footage. On September 24th, Amber Guyger is fired. Now, some of y'all have seen me, Lord, my little picture even made it to the Tamara Hall show, to where my picture has come come up. I now am seem like I'm the poster child for police brutality protest. We went out there and we protested about Amber Guyger being fired. Now, the police association is led by, I told you, Mike Mata, has done a very good job at ensuring that police officers do not face the penalties of their actions. Point in case. I told you, I'm going to bring it on home today, baby. Go grab your cup, boys and girls. I'm going to fill it up. Amber Guyger's partner slash superior officer slash lover killed a boy. His mother wants the case reopened. Y'all remember that, hearing about that? He killed somebody and got away with it. Okay? So now that was supposedly a mistake. He thought the boy was brandishing a weapon. The child had a candy bar in his hand, shot and killed him. Let me tell you why this is so important. They both serve on the CRT team. This is a specialized team, high profile. I told you earlier, they back up SWAT. What that means is, y'all, this is so heavy today. This is so heavy. What that means is their training should be more enhanced, and we should expect more from them than a beat cop. I'm not saying they're better, but they're in a different classification of police officers. This is the difference between going to an internal medicine doctor and going to an ENT. You can go to an internal medicine doctor. He's going to look at certain things in the body. You go to an ENT, the ear, nose, and throat doctor, they're more specialized. You know, SWAT is supposed to be more like surgeons, heart surgeons. So they're on a specialized team. Their training should be more enhanced. Martin Rivera shoots, her partner shoots and kills a kid with a candy bar. She shoots and kills somebody because she's in the wrong apartment. We're supposed to have faith and trust and confidence in the Dallas Police Department when they out here just shooting and killing because they don't know where they are and they don't know what people have in their hands. They don't know the difference between a weapon. They don't know the difference between where they are located. Something is wrong here. You know, what is Shakespeare? What is it saying? Shakespeare, something is rotten in Denmark. Something is rotten in Dallas. In the DPD. All right, but I've digressed. But listen to what I'm saying. He shot and killed a child, somebody's child, because somebody said it was a kid, 14 years old, and somebody else said he was 21. Someone's child is dead. I also want to talk about Armstrong, David Armstrong, who is the Ranger. I'm going to get to him, but there's so much impropriety looming around him that this case stinks from the inside out. They fired her on September 24th. That's more than 2 weeks after the shooting, after protesters called for her termination. Excuse me. Now, I was there. My boy Chris, my brother from another mother, he was there with me. He sometimes goes on protests with me just to make sure I'm safe because he say my mouth is a little bit sometimes I can be a little something. Say sometimes my mouth is reckless. So he goes with me. We're out there and it doesn't feel right while we're protesting. We later learned that there were police officers that were supposed to be keeping us safe. I'm telling y'all, it didn't make me feel good. It didn't give me the warm fuzzies. I felt some kind of way, but Chris and I protested. Now, listen, the police were out there with us. There were several Black officers that were out there with us when we were protesting right before she got fired. Now, they told us a lot of things that were happening prior to her being fired. But what we know is her first account, the arrest warrant, the search warrant, and what they said later and what they're saying now on the stand, none of that jives. That is what we know. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt, the first account was she put her things down. I'm recapping for y'all. First thing she did was she put her things down, couldn't get in the door. That makes sense. Put your things down and you can't get in the door. You see it flash red. Okay? That's not what she did. We know that her things, per the arrest worker, were found in the home. All of her things. Now, the inference would be somebody brought it in, but why would you do that? Why would you take your colleague's belongings into a dead man's house where she shot and killed him? If it don't make sense, there's a lot somewhere. October 26th, the John family files a federal lawsuit. That's where Lee Merritt comes in. Remember, I told you Lee demanded that they take the statements of people that said they heard them talking. They heard her beating on the door, demanding to be let in, open this GD door. That does not go with anything that they're saying now. That is why the family got an attorney, because what they were actually saying, what was being released in the media, and what the accounts were from the people that reached out to Lee Merritt. Now you say, well, okay, people just reached out to Lee Merritt. People, you all have sent me things, because when you feel like someone can get your story out, that's who you send it to. That's what happened with Lee. So they did send that. And that was to enforce his constitutional rights, because they said that they failed to do that on the 26th. On November 26th, the Dallas County Grand Jury convenes to hear evidence against Guyger. They are tasked with deciding whether Amber Guyger will be cleared in the case or go to trial for manslaughter or murder. Remember, D.A. Cruzo said this should be a murder case, where Faith failed to say what she thought under the standard of law. And Armstrong, David Armstrong, the Texas Ranger, remember his affidavit said a charge of manslaughter. That's important, because when he got on the stand on day 2, he said she shouldn't be charged at all. Well, either, I said it before, you lied now or you lied then, because you said she should be charged with manslaughter. But that's that blue veil. All right. On November 30th, she is indicted on a murder charge. Now, listen to what I'm saying. It took the grand jury 4 days to decide that she needed a murder charge. It took them 2 weeks to decide she needed to be fired. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit. When we called for her fire when we were protesting, some of you all will remember that that's when I took to the porch. That's kind of how this whole trajectory for me started, for me just coming to you and talking your ear off about the things that were going on. I started on the porch, and that's where the Black Tea Sip was born, because I came on in tears and talked about how egregious the Dallas City Council, the Black city councilman in particular, which would have been Casey Thomas, who was serving as the mayor pro tem, Tanel Atkins, Kevin Felder, because by that time, Dwayne Caraway was not there. Remember, he had been indicted and charged federal charges of bribery. I talked about how those 3 Black city councilmen voted to give the police a pay increase. This is prior to her firing. When I said that's an egregious act, I said that was the most egregious thing I'd ever heard of, should have never happened, because she shot and killed this man, and you don't give the police department a raise. Now, I'm going back a little bit. I'm backtracking just a minute. Remember I told you Mike Model, president of the Police Association, came? Remember I told you how they were taking her out the car? The officer in the car said that's not normal protocol. Remember how on the defense attorney, day 1 opening remarks, starts talking about her getting special treatment? All of this plays into the way they are handling this case. And I just want to refresh your memory, Black folks. I'm just refreshing your memory, because I came out and talked about Kleiman was the only one that said this city is hurting and you will increase their pay. That should have been tabled. That's not what happened, because that's how much power the police association has with Dallas Police Department. And this case has been run, orchestrated, manufactured, and fostered through the Dallas Police Association. They had enough power to push through a vote when this woman was sitting at home drawing a check, because she was on paid administrative leave prior to her firing on, September 24th. Okay. November 30th, she's indicted. January 8, 2019, Guyger makes her first appearance in court. She is sent before Judge Tammy Kemp, who she's in front of now, for the first time since the murder indictment for John's murder. March 18th, Guyger appears in court, and they set a trial date. Now, in between this time, Guyger takes a vacation. I don't remember the exact date, and I apologize. She takes a vacation. Those of us that know are demanding more information. We cannot get it. It is believed that she took a cruise, which means she was in maritime. Oh, Lord, sometimes you just have to laugh, Lord. She's in We do not allow people charged with murder to leave the country. She is at sea in waters abroad prior to going to trial. The difference between how some folks are treated when they go to court and other people. I believe that this entire case is tainted. And that's no disrespect to the prosecution, although I'm going to be real honest about how I feel about their case. I think it's weak. I think the way they've handled it is weak. I think resting after 4 days shocked the super hell out of Tammy Kemp and the defense. No one was prepared for them to rest. All right. That's on March 18th. She appears. And they announced the court date that it's going to begin August 12th, but that could change. On July 8th, Guyger's defense attorneys asked for a change of venue. I know y'all remember that. I know y'all remember the change of venue thing because so many of y'all living scared as many black folks do. I didn't say afraid. I didn't say scared. I said scared as many black folks do. Y'all were up in arms talking about they're going to get a change of venue and she's going to get off and they're going to take her to Kaufman County. That determination had to be made by a judge. Now, 52% of the vote comes from black folks. I knew more than likely it was going to rest in the hands of a black judge. I was not afraid. And I said that publicly. I doubt very seriously if it's a change of venue. They were trying to get her in a change of venue and get her to or Amber Guyger friendly county, a county that would have been more white than black. That ultimately did not happen. What Judge Tammy Kemp said at that time was she was not going to make a determination about a change of venue until it was determined that you could not get a fair and impartial jury. They sent out 400 questionnaires to Dallas County registered voters. Out of that 400, 200 were selected. Out of that 200, they started voir dire, which is basically an interview of persons selected to determine if they could sit for the jury. On this jury, there are 5 black people, 4 Hispanic people, 1 Asian, and 2 Caucasians. I think you need to understand the breakdown of the jury. So the jury selection actually began on September 23rd. When we knew that they were set for trial, okay? However, on September 13th is when they started the actual voir dire. On September 16th, this determined, based on these people, the 400 whittled down to 200 that ultimately become 12, 5 black, 4 Hispanic, 1 Asian, 2 Caucasian, that no, we're going to have a trial right here in Dallas County, and that is Judge Tammy Kemp's decision. September 23rd, the trial begins. There are many questions that are still left unanswered when we start day 1. Many of the questions are, how the hell do you get to the wrong place? And we'll talk about that in a minute. On September 23rd, we have Alyssa Finley, John's sister. She testifies to the fact that her brother has ADHD and that he does sometimes smoke weed because the Adderall makes him feel jittery and he doesn't like the way he feels. Listen, let me say this. This boy is from the islands. Is it hard for us to believe that he partakes in a little Mary Jane every now and then? Clearly, it did not affect him because he is a rising star at PricewaterhouseCoopers as an accountant. So the fact that they tried to make this be something is utterly ridiculous. But, she testifies to that. So, and you say, well, why is that important? The prosecution will do that so that the defense can't use it later, can't spin it in a way. So they get it right out there with his sister. And can you imagine how difficult that was for her to sit there and have to look at the woman that murdered her brother? This is different than what we normally have. This is not a Michael Brown with his hands up. This is not Trayvon with, the crazy dude who wants to be the cop who can't be. This is not our sister Bland, who was popping off to the cops. This is totally different. This man is in his home. We later learn eating ice cream. Now they keep saying in his shorts and a t-shirt. The boy was in his drawers. Okay? He was in his underwear. Eating ice cream, watching the game, doing like we do. That is what was happening. This case is totally different because we have a white woman who says that she mistakenly, and so she got, this is this is not a case of mistaken identity. This is a case of mistaken apartment identity. White woman shoots and kills a black man in his drawers in his home. And the defense theory of the case is that he is posing a threat to her in his home when she is ultimately the intruder. By all intents and purposes, she's trespassing. She's unwelcome, unbeknownst, and unknown. All right. Now we have Sergeant Robert Watson. That's Guyger's former supervisor. He testifies. Then we have Martin Rivera, her superior officer, partner, lover. He testifies. Okay. I am going to take a quick break. I got to get in here some commercials. Y'all stay with me. I'll be right back. We're going to continue to unpack this Amber Guyger thing because we went all the way back to September 6th. I'm going to bring it home to today, September 27th. This is called with the Black Tea Sip. Y'all stay with me. Go grab your cup. I'm going to fill it up.
Hey, what's going on, my good people? It's your man, Red Boy.
It's your girl, Ronnie B.
If you are a true fan of throwback hip hop and R&B, then look no further than the Red Boy Radio Show.
Get ready to lay back, kick it, and enjoy the ride. As we take you on a journey back in time, playing some of your favorite
Let's
throwback
get through all the
tunes from the
commercials and come back.
Also enjoy some interviews as well as various topics to spark a nostalgic conversation and current stories that affect the urban community.
Come through. Join us every Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time inside the Green Room.
This is not a hobby. It's Radio Minutes, Red Boy Radio Show. Check out
The wait is over. Now you can get your own awesome Fishbowl shirts, sweaters, and accessories to the Fishbowl Radio Network website. Log on to FBRN.us. Click the easy-to-find swag link at the top of our page and start rocking the latest.
No, I just moved it. It looks bad just sitting there like that. So this is, I had it all slung over.
Jump in now at FBRN.us. Click the swag link and join the Fishbowl family.
Attention golfers, time to get that golf swing on. It's the sixth
One day I hit the thing and Facebook went off and everyone was like, what you do? I don't know, got excited. Yes, I'm really trying to watch my feet.
Check it out, 7 a.m. Shotgun 8 a.m. For more information, contact Kathy Mitchell by emailing her at Kathy@Turner12.org or call or text her at 214-564-0501. The 6th Annual Golfing for Grads Tournament, Saturday, September 14th. Proceeds benefiting the Turner 12 organization. We'll see you there.
Lord, my little hair just
Mark your calendars. Get ready. Yes, the 2019 Fishbowl
Child.
Radio Network
this bottom John thing gonna mess me up so bad my hair won't even do right.
celebration. It's happening on Saturday, October 19th at Studio 80 in downtown Fort Worth. Purchase your tickets today and join us as we Fishbowl Radio Network opened in 2009,
Yeah.
and we are gonna party like it's
So,
1999 as we celebrate the host
Gary
and
called
listeners
me.
that have made Fishbowl Radio Network the
I think
largest
Gary called me and told me the show was nominated. I was very surprised because the show is not even, it's not even 6 months old. And I feel like people have been putting in time and years and you know. Oh well, I appreciate that. I was shocked. Excited though. So yeah, I'm coming.
Fishbowl Radio Network Internet Radio Host Awards and 10-year anniversary celebration.
Y'all go vote.
Nourishing's Healthy Skin. Simply Outdoors skincare products provides a luxurious nourishment for your body. Indulge in our rich scrubs and body butters and top it off with a sensational and unique aromatic line of spray roll-on fragrances. It's full and lovely. We adore love is real. Just spread it.
All right, and I'm back unpacking this Amber Guyger case. If you're just tuning in, then what we've been doing is looking at the case from September 6th all the way to present. Um, and you'll see that okay. Then what we've been doing is really looking at all of the things. I'm going to just say it, all the improprieties, all the misstatements, the slip ups, and how they have framed the argument that they are now using on day 5 of the trial. So, with that being said, we talked about September 6th, what happened. I'm just going to recap a little bit. On the 6th, right after the shooting, you have JD Miles, who's here, who talks about she went into the wrong apartment and the door was ajar. Simultaneously, almost, NBC5 Bay Area says they've spoken to someone who said she put, and Amber Guyger's original statement to the police was she set all of her belongings down and then started to use her key. So did you put your stuff down, start to use the key, then realize the door was ajar? None of that there's never been a delineation of what has actually happened. To that end, then we know that the arrest warrant that Judge Brandon Birmingham signed, they recovered her things from inside his apartment. Okay, we went through her being fired and all of the mess that happened prior to that. So now we are at day 1 of the trial. Okay, I talked about his sister and how difficult it was for her. Then, we had some neighbors testify. We go back to the red doormat. Okay, Amber Guyger, fourth floor. She's exactly 1 floor over him. What we know is that on that floor, there's a huge urn or vase there that she passes to get to her apartment. That was not present. She does not have a red doormat in front of her door. Now, remember they showed you the police the body cam footage. Not her body cam footage, because remember, she docks her camera prior to leaving and coming home. Or at least where she was trying to go, supposedly home. Now, I'm going to get to Martin Rivera. Y'all say, why y'all ain't talking about it? I'm going to get there. I told y'all before, she is on an elite team in the police department. It's a celebrated team. She's proud of that team. She doesn't notice any of these cues. A red doormat in front of her door. She doesn't notice that she didn't pass the urn. I told y'all she parks to the side because while she's having this conversation with Martin Rivera, because remember, he left early to go to his kid's Boy Scout event. And she's sending him explicit photographs. Remember? Now, this is what I think. Here's y'all's coyism for the day, because I've been very factual for an hour, and I have not given y'all the coyism that y'all so dearly love. I believe they say the explicit picture. She sends a text, want to touch. Now, she was in her car when she did that. They said she pulled over to the side, and they're inferring, the state is inferring, or the prosecution is inferring, that she got some bad news. Let me tell you what happened. She's out here showing her hoo-ha or her tit. Point blank. She is out here at the parking garage exposing herself. She did not wait to get home to pull her clothes down or up to expose her body parts. Want to touch. Look, let's keep it 100. She didn't show him her knee. Talking about, do you want to touch? That's not how sexting works. I mean, I don't know personally, but I'm just saying, as a fully thinking human being, I have sense enough to know that ain't how I get down. You don't send somebody your cheek, take a picture of your cheek and say you want to touch. No, she either showed her bosom. Remember your grandmama used to say your bosom. She either showed her bosom or her hoo-ha. And I believe that he said, not tonight. So you out here He explodes in your public hearse. And then he says, not tonight. So the theory of the case for the prosecution is she was distraught. She goes to the wrong case. Now, let's right there. This case is two-part. It is a case of mistaken in fact. It is a case that they cannot use, but they're kind of borrowing. It's like a smorgasbord. This is the golden corral of how to put a case together. So they buffet style and how they're going to do it. So if you are mistaken in fact, what that means is you made a mistake, but it's such a reasonable mistake for you to make that anyone could have made it. All right, let's be fair. I don't want us to have the black acid when I'm always talking about caucasity. So let's be fair. Here it is. All of us who have ever gone to a hotel that has many floors have gone to the wrong floor. You get off. I've known drunk people to do it. I've known high people to do it. I've known sober people to do it. I've known stupid people to do it. I've known young people, fat people, ugly people, tall people, short people. I've known all kinds of people to make that mistake. I personally was with my boys on vacation. I needed to go down some more. So I don't know, maybe my room was like 4322. And so as I'm coming, I stop at 4422. Just, things happen, right? I get there and the door is ajar where they put the little latch in the door. And I look, I'm like, I didn't do this. And so as I'm standing there trying to figure out what my next move should be, because of course I'm not on the CRT Dallas Police Force and I don't have this specialized training, but I have what they call Oak Cliff good sense. And I know not to walk in no door if it's open, if it is my hotel room. So while I'm standing there, a couple walks up and they look at me and they're looking strangely and I'm looking strangely and I read their cues. And so I look and I said, oh, I am so sorry. I'm at the wrong room. They say, oh, okay, but they looking at me real odd. They watch me walk down the hall to my room, which was down the hall, right? They watch me. I didn't shoot or kill anybody in the hallway, but I had sense enough, just that Oak Cliff good sense, to know not to go into a place where the door is ajar, even though I thought that was my hotel room. Now, let's get to Armstrong's statement, because he too on the stand said something that makes you raise an eyebrow. Now, they said, did you survey the people who live in the apartment? And how many of them said they made the same mistake? Originally, he said 15%. That means 85% of the people that live there have never gone to the wrong floor and subsequently the wrong apartment door. 85%. Then he crawfished. That's a legal technical term. He crawfished and he backs it up and says, no, excuse me, I mean 23%. Okay, 23%. That still means, just what everyday math, ladies and gentlemen, 77% of all people who live in Southside Flats have never made that mistake and have never gone to the wrong floor and the wrong apartment. And by virtue of this statement coming from David Armstrong, have never shot and killed someone in the wrong place. Mistaken identity of an apartment. Now, people seem to say that really does substantiate the defense's case. I think not. I think that further demonstrates that a reasonable and prudent person, a person that does not have this specialized training, skilled as a trained police officer of 4 years, has never made this mistake. The only person who has made this mistake is Amber Guyger, again, 4-year veteran of the Dallas Police Department on a specialized police force, CRT. She is the only person out of 77%, if we believe the subsequent number, or 85% of the people that live there, to make that mistake. Now, okay, y'all saying, all right, out of the people, the facts that I've given you, let's use the latter percentages that David Armstrong provided. Out of 77, because now first he said 15, which is probably the truth. But let's deal with what we have, what we know. 77% of those people did not do it. Okay. 23% of the people did. Out of that 23% of the people that did make this error, none of them walked away with a dead person. Reasonable and prudent people do not shoot and kill people who, when they go to the wrong place. You say, well, everybody doesn't have a gun. You know how many people have concealed handgun licenses in the state of Texas? Do y'all understand that? Am I making sense? Testing. 1, 2, 3. Do you know how many people have guns in the state of Texas? And listen here, in the state of Texas, for those of you that are around the world and outside the state, you can carry a machine gun. We have an open carry law. So these people are walking around with guns, loaded and with ammunition. That is not